Welcome to today's session. My name is Peter Salazar, CPA. Before we get started, I'd like to get a sound check. If you can hear me, can you please raise your hand? Yeah, I need all of you to raise your hands. More of you, more. I'm just kidding. I can't see you. This is a webinar. Just trying to add a little humor. My name is Peter Salazar. I have a CPA firm that I work out of, and I've been doing it for a long time, but recently it's been my full-time job. See, I don't know how your 2020 went, but my 2020 was terrible. At the offset of the pandemic, I lost my job after 8 years of service. And at that point, I thought I was going to lose my mind, to be honest with you. I had never been in that position before, and I didn't know what to do. So at first I said, this is a great opportunity. I didn't like working there anyway. I'm going to take it easy and hold out for the perfect job or a fun job. I thought, everything's in my ballpark. I'm going to do great. And then some time went by and nothing happened. More time went by and nothing happened. I started to get a little down, negative. I just said, there's no jobs out there. There's nothing for me to do. I'm just going to sit here and play video games. And nothing was happening. No one was knocking on my door giving me the perfect job. Even though I was going online every now and then, clicking and sending my resume, it wasn't producing results. And I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of gave up. But one day, as I was playing video games with my son, he was talking through the headset to one of his friends, and he said, you got to keep practicing. You got to learn how to play the game if you want to make it to the next level. Kind of scolding his friend. And for a split second there, I thought I was losing my mind here. I looked at him, I was like, is he talking to me? I got to learn how to play the game. And that's when I realized I hadn't been playing the job hunting game right. The job hunting game it's just like any sport, like any video game, like any board game. It has rules and things you have to do to be successful. I mean, we might have played chess or checkers and won at some point by luck, but to be seriously competitive and to get out there, you have to play the game the right way. Today, we're going to talk about a few subjects: how to play the job hunting game, how to work with the ATS robot, and we'll talk about what that means later, how to pass the personality or behavioral health assessments, and finally, how to get ready for the interview, something that a lot of us overlook or think, I'm just going to wing it because this is who I am. And when the spotlight hits you, you forget some of those things. So we'll get to that. They actually all build on each other. So I don't have any PowerPoint for you. I don't have any 3-step program. We're just going to discuss these things, and hopefully you'll be able to retain it. A lot of it is common sense. As I mentioned, hopefully you'll be like, oh yeah, yes, that's what I can do. I know that it makes sense. There's no exam at the end. It's just something for you to listen to, and hopefully you'll get something out of it, and we'll be able to, the ultimate goal is for you to find a job or get multiple offers. And it's really following a few simple steps. So let's get started. How to play the job hunting game. So the job hunting game in today's world is different than what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. Today, most things are online, and it starts with your resume. In order to have any hope of being hired, generally speaking, you have to have a solid resume. Now, I know there's some people out there say, but my friend got hired through a friend. That's the exception. That's not the general rule. Most of us have to go to the company website, upload our resume, and wish for the best. And that's what I was doing. I was going to LinkedIn, to Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, and I was hitting click and send, click and send, click and easy apply. A lot of them have click and auto apply. And I thought that was good, and I was getting good at it. Click and send, click and send. I was clicking and sending while I was playing a game. I was clicking and sending while I was watching TV, and I was getting no results. And every time I would click and send, I'd be like, "This is it. This is it. This is the time I'm going to get a result," and nothing would happen. And that reminds me of the pop culture or the Einstein definition of insanity. It's when you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And if you're doing what I was doing, clicking and sending, you're expecting a different result. It wasn't my words, it's Einstein's, but not going to happen. Pretty insane. So we have to get through the resume, and the resume has a few things that you need to work on. Number one, it needs to be in a great format. You start with your name at the top. If you have a certain credential that is very important to your industry, for example, in the accounting world, CPA is very important. So mine says Peter Salazar, CPA at the top of my resume, because I need to highlight that after it gets past the initial system. It needs to show your address, or at least your city and city, state, zip code. It needs to have your phone number. It's usually easier if you literally put the word phone, colon, and then your phone number. A lot of people like to put their phone number in dots. Just use the standard phone number format. So open parentheses, area code, close parentheses, and then your phone number. It needs to have your email. They need to have an email, and please, please, please. I'm sure you've heard this before. It makes common sense. If you were known as the Thrasher or Star Dancer, whatever, 41, whatever it is, take that off and make it more professional. Usually something like your first name, your last name, and a number, because there's a lot of people. So Peter Salazar 12 would be a good one for me, versus something else that people call me that I'm not going to mention on this webinar. But for you, make your email easy. You can create a free email account at Gmail that you only use for hiring purposes, and make it professional. First name, last name, first initial, last name. And if you have to add a number to it, it could be something easy like your zip code, 85233, or your area code, 480, 602, whatever, something simple where people are not going to say, well, I wonder what this means. Don't do any weird numbers that mean something insane. So have a valid email. And now a lot of people want to see your LinkedIn page. So if you don't have a LinkedIn page, please, there's other webinars on how to create a LinkedIn page. Create your LinkedIn page and add that to your resume. So you need those things: your name, your credentials, if it's important to your industry. For example, today there's a lot of Toastmasters here. My DTM designation is not important to my industry. So my name doesn't say Peter Salazar DTM, it says Peter Salazar CPA, because CPA is important to my industry. Address at the very least, city, state, and zip code. Phone number, you can prefix it with the word phone so that the ATS machine can find your phone number. Email, you can prefix it with the word email and then a valid email. Simple name, a number at gmail.com works. And your LinkedIn profile, if you have it, copy it and put it on your webpage. That's the basic stuff you need on your resume. And a lot of us don't have it. I didn't have that, and I was like, why am I not getting calls? And people were following up. You didn't have a LinkedIn profile on there. So I had to create one. After that, the preferred method is descending chronological order for your job experience. So you start off with your current job, and it should be the name of the company, your title, your most recent title, and the dates you were hired there. And it doesn't have to have the day of the month. So preferred methods are, if you were hired in January, let's say you were hired in January 05. It could be the name of the company, ABC, your title, manager, from January. It could be the word January, 2005, or I could say 01/05 or 01/2005 to current, Current is the only non-date format that ATS machines like. Or if or previous jobs, it could be like 0105 to 1208, or January 2005 to December 2008 on the date format. Those dates are very important. If you want to add the middle of the month, sometimes it confuses the machines and they don't like it. Or if you want to add, just add the first. So January 1st, 2005 to December 1st, 2008. Very common stuff. A lot of us overlook it. We try to figure out what day we started working. It's not really needed. And then put stuff that highlights your time at work. A lot of people, once it gets past the ATS machines, they're looking for your skills, not, oh, every day I would come in and I would open the door and I would take my break at noon and I would be the last person out the door. Doesn't really say what you contribute to the company. So make sure you list basic job duties, but show off a little bit, show off numbers. So manage a $4 million account. That shows the level of account that you were in versus managing a $4,000 level account. People are looking for that, and they might be looking for that, and it may disqualify you from it. So put some of that information, put some of your accomplishments, successfully transitioned project 1 over a 3-month period, etc. So that's some of the basics on your resume. You do want to highlight your education. If you have education at, bachelor's, training that's required in your industry. If you have an advanced degree, list that one first. Again, descending order. So your master's degree happened in 2005 and your bachelor's degree happened in 2000. Or your certificate and what you're looking for happened in 2005. I have a friend who went to school for behavioral health, and then he got a certificate in accounting. So he lists his certificate in accounting first, and under that, his, I think it was like a liberal arts bachelor's degree. That way people see that it's relevant to the position. So try to do them in descending order as relevant to the position you're looking for. If it was backwards, if he wasn't looking for a position in accounting, there might not be a need to post the certificate in accounting. If he was going back to behavioral health and looking for a social worker position, he might have just been okay listing his bachelor's degree in social work or whatever it was. So education is important. All the skills that are needed for the position you're looking for. So for example, in my industry, SQL programming is very important. So I list SQL programming in Oracle and Microsoft. But if it wasn't relevant, I wouldn't list that. There's no need for me to list any web browsing programming that I may have because it's not relevant to my industry. I want to put stuff that highlights what's relevant to the industry on that resume. And that takes me to the second part of job hunting. The most important part, the reasons that I wasn't getting callbacks is I was looking at the job postings and saying, okay, this is a finance, this is an accounting job posting. I'm an accountant, I'm in finance, I'm going to hit apply. And a good example is, and I just tested this a couple of weeks ago, one of the local resorts was hiring for an accounting manager. And they have specific data in the job posting. Must have balance sheet, must have a M166 reconciliation experience working with international currencies, 3 things that I had no experience with, and 3 things that were not on my resume. So while I have 20 years of experience in finance and accounting, and this posting said it requires 7 years of experience, I was like, I'm sure I'm gonna get a call, but there was nothing tying me to that resume. One of the important things about the ATS, the applicant tracking system, it's not a person, it's a program or a robot, whatever you want to call it. It looks for keywords from the job posting to your resume. And if they're not there, or if there's not enough of them there, you are not a qualified candidate, even though you may be a qualified candidate. So the most important thing for today's session is for you to look at the keywords on the job posting. Remember, that keyword there said balance sheet reconciliation. I had nowhere on my resume the word balance sheet reconciliation. And then change the words, if applicable, to something on the job posting. So the job posting had the word point of contact for all financial matters with external departments. My resume says liaison for financial matters with external departments. While liaison, us as people understand that liaison and point of contact are the same thing, you want to make sure that the applicant tracking system ties those keywords. So at that point, what I should have done was change the word on my resume from liaison to point of contact. And I would have been able to have more success on that. Got one more point. It's literally a point system that the applicant tracking system looks at you and it says, okay, does this person have this keyword? Do they have this year's of service? And it just grades you. And if you don't have enough keywords is the major part. You're not going to make it to the end. So once I learned that, I started reading the resumes and making sure that I had all the keywords from the job posting, on my resume. Now, this goes without saying. You should apply for jobs that you're qualified for. Don't just, I'm not going to apply for a doctor job or an engineer job and just match the keywords on my resume, because they'll figure it out during the interview that I am not qualified for the position. So really what you want to do is look for a position that you're qualified for, and tie those keywords to your resume. It is very important that you do that. On the other thing, I did find a different position. It was a healthcare company. They were hiring for a financial director. And when I looked at that resume, all the keywords there on the posting, a lot of those keywords were on my resume. Now, I did have to fix my resume because in that, like the point of contact versus liaison, there were some of those words. There were words like I had through the end of the project, and in theirs they had accomplishment. So I had to switch my end of project on my resume to accomplishments so that the keywords would match with the applicant tracking system, and I would hopefully receive a phone call. Very important. And guess what? I was qualified for this position. Very qualified. It's exactly what I do. All I had to do was tweak my resume to match some of the keywords on there. For example, I mentioned SQL earlier on. I was a SQL Server programmer in a previous life, and that's what I had on there. But this position required Microsoft Studio SQL. Slightly different, but same thing. I do have experience. So I had to add that to my resume. I had an older version of Oracle on my resume, and this had the new cloud-based Hyperion. I am familiar with that, so I had to make sure that I added cloud-based Hyperion to my resume to tie it up. And again, very qualified for the position. Within 24 hours, I got a call from the recruiter to do an initial interview to see if I was qualified for the position. That is the power of knowing how to have your resume, knowing the keywords that are on your resume, and by all means, please make sure you're qualified for the position, because the recruiter would have found out like, no, Peter, you're not qualified for this. But we did move on to the second part, and we'll get to that here in a minute. So that's some of the things about job hunting. Your resume has to be there. And remember what I mentioned earlier, and a lot of people disagree with this, but LinkedIn and ZipRecruiter have these auto apply functions, and they make it seem so easy. I have not once received a phone call from those. I received a lot of, oh, we found thank you for applying. We're moving on with a different candidate, or thank you for applying. The position has been filled. These auto-generated rejections from those. And I was interviewing this guy the other day, and he told me that he had been applying for a while, and through LinkedIn, and he wasn't getting through. And what the recruiter said was, "Oh, I don't use those because it's too easy that they flood my emails, or I have to go here. So I just use a company intranet, people that apply there, because it shows the recruiter that they took time to go to the company and possibly research them and hit apply through the company website. So, and so then I said, this can't be. Is this true? So I asked a few other people in HR, and what they told me was the same thing, that they don't use the ZipRecruiter or the LinkedIn auto applies because of various reasons. Now, these may be isolated to these certain people that I've talked to, or to a couple companies. If you have had success with it, well, then you're not listening to this webinar. But just something to point out, that what I tell people is, don't ever underestimate the power of a phone call. A few months back, I found a position that I was qualified for, and I've been testing this for a while, and I didn't get a call back, and I had went through one of these auto applies. So I called the company and I said, "Hey, my name's Peter. I applied for the position. I think I'm a great candidate. All my qualifications match to the job posting. I'm just wondering if you received my resume and if you need any more information." I didn't come at it, "Did you get my resume? Why don't you call me?" And the recruiter was fortunately very nice, and she looked at me. She said, "I don't see your resume in here. How did you apply?" And I told her, and sure enough, she wasn't using that system. A lot of times, these third-party companies, especially the ones that you've never heard of before, they just try to get the company's business by sending you your resume. They're not really applying for you. They're actually trying to get the company's business. So she recommended that I apply through the company website. And sure enough, she calls me back a day later, says, "Hey, I saw your resume. I want to set up an initial interview." So I don't want LinkedIn people to yell at me. I don't want ZipRecruiter people to call me. This has just been my experience with a few HR people that I've talked to. They are preferring that you go to their website. And some of them, they still value the phone call. It just gets you up there. Which brings up to another point. If you know somebody in the company, have them present your resume. Some companies have policies where if an internal employee brings a resume, they will look at it at least. Some companies have policies that they will give you an interview, and that's great. But some companies have a minimum thing that they will at least review your resume to see if you're a qualified candidate. So use your LinkedIn and see who you know that's working at that company that can elevate your resume, or at least give it to somebody so that it can be reviewed. So enough about resumes. I'm sure you've heard this stuff before. If it's making sense, great. If the ATS system, applicant tracking system, makes sense now, they look for keywords, they look for dates, they look for your phone number, they look for specifics on the jobs. If communication is very important. Don't put the word Toastmasters, because a lot of people unfortunately don't know what that means, but you could put leadership and communication training at Toastmasters. Perfect, because it has the word communication, it has the word leadership. They will love it, and it shows where you learned it at. But don't just put Toastmasters. It's not a keyword, unfortunately, yet. Maybe in the future it will be, but not yet. Again, distinguished Toastmaster doesn't mean a lot in the outside world. To us, it is a valuable education level. But on the resume, it might not mean much. You can bring it up during the interview. So let's move on to the pre-screening and the behavioral health questions. I've tried to break these questions, and I've had some success in it. It's easy if it's for you. It's very difficult if it's not for you. So the pre-screening and behavioral health questions are a series of questions, and it says, what type of leader are you? And then it says, what type of leader do people think you are? How do you handle these situations? It could be a variety of questions. Sometimes it asks you the question more than once to make sure you're answering it right. Sometimes it asks you the same question in different tones. What type of leader are you not? It's a variety of questions. And here's the simple thing. Don't try to beat it. Be yourself. And if the company is if the company culture is the right fit for you, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to fit you to the company culture. If you answer all these questions and you match a company culture, then guess what? You're going to be a great fit for the company, and they're going to want you on board. If you answer the questions and the screening says you're not the right fit for the company, then you just saved yourself a lot of time and you save the company a lot of time, because you weren't the right fit for this company. And there's no need for you to spend a month, 3 months, a year at that company and be miserable the whole time because you didn't fit their environment. So the pre-screening, I just wanted to bring it up because a lot of people say, how do I get over that? And the short answer is you shouldn't. But if you want to, here's what you need to do. And you should do this anyway. You should log into the company, look for if they have it. A lot of companies have internet, but if they have external sites like an external meetup page, an external Facebook page, a company LinkedIn group, whatever it is, if you can find those and you see what people are posting about, and it's kind of common in LinkedIn for them to say, hey, we went this weekend and we did a 5K back when we were meeting in person, right? Or we all volunteered at the local food bank. Or sometimes you see pictures of their potlucks. If that is stuff, and as you look around the environment, and if that's something that's intriguing to you, then you'll kind of get a sense for it. Another thing is to look at your LinkedIn page and see who's working there and ask them what it's like. And if they tell you and you're like, oh, that sounds so neat. That sounds like something I'd want to be a part of. And ask them for what they hear about the future of the company and what their managers are like and what team events they have. That's how you'll find out what the company's like. And if you meet that stuff, you will automatically be ingrained in the company culture, and you will be able to answer the pre-screenings, the behavioral health questions, and be able to successfully pass it. If it's not for you, then don't take it. Don't take the pre-screenings. But if after hearing about them, if after doing some research on the company, and you can start with their website, but that usually tells you just what they want you to hear. But ask somebody, look at their LinkedIn profile, see what people are posting, see what they're doing in the community. Especially ask about what management is like and what they're doing, to see if if that's something that you want to be a part of. So that's the pre-screenings. For the most part, I tell people, don't worry about it. Be yourself, take the test, answer it honestly. And if you are that right candidate for the position, then you'll pass it with flying colors, and you won't have to worry about it. It's nothing you can study for, kind of. There is a small portion that you can study for, but best of luck to you on that one. Don't try to break it. Again, it's just like, don't apply for the position if you're not qualified. If you're not going to be fitting into the company culture, then there's no need to go through the pre-screenings. The last part I want to cover is the interview. It's highly overlooked, and a lot of people say, well, I've been doing this for so long, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell them what I'm about, and the interview is no problem. I don't have to worry about that. And that is not true. A lot of people think that they can go in there and wing it. Here's what I suggest. When you are preparing for the resume, have examples of the most common scenarios. Tell me about a time when you failed. Rehearse that question, because when you're in front of the camera or 3 people staring at you, and now in the Zoom environment, when you're looking at that person, you will freeze. You will say, oh, tell me about that time I failed. For some reason, if you don't practice it, it doesn't come off as honest or natural. So practice a time that you didn't do so well. Practice a time where you had a disagreement with a coworker or a manager. These are common questions that get asked all the time. Practice them. Practice a time that you worked in a group and how you helped the group be successful, because they will ask you that. These are common behavioral health scenario questions that almost everyone asks. And if you don't practice it, you will, unless you're just a natural in the spotlight, you will mess them up. I've messed them up dozens of times until I practice it. I practice them the day before and sometimes the morning of the interview. Tell me about a time that I failed. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it has to end in a positive way, right? And it has to apply to the position. So I'm not gonna say, well, when I was 5 years old, I fell off my bike and then I got back on and I've tried and now I could ride. I've been riding a bike since. Doesn't apply to the position, right? A time that I failed, relevant to the position, preferably something that happened early on in your career that you overcame and you show them how you overcame it. Same thing in a group environment. Usually we don't want to say, this, look at me, this is what I did. But when they ask you about your contributions, you want to tell them, this is what I did. This is how I helped the group. And this is how we were successful. So let them know how you personally contributed to the group. I've done it where I've given so much credit to the other group that at the end they were like, well, what did you actually do? Because you're giving so much credit to the group that it doesn't sound like you did anything. So do tell them, this is how I helped the group. And think of a solid example of how you helped the group and then how the group was successful as a whole, right? Tell people about disagreements and how you handle it. Everyone has disagreements, everyone has downtimes, and they want to know how you handled it and how you overcame it. It cannot be super relevant to a position, to the thing you are going to do. So for example, if you say, well, I don't like to be on the phones and, I get tired after about 10 minutes. Sometimes I'm not comfortable with people when they yell at me over the phones, and you're applying for a sales or a phone position, you're discounting yourself from the job. You might as well not take the interview. But if it's, technology, it takes me a little bit longer to get accustomed to technology and you're applying for a phone position. But once I get it, I practice at home, and I have a friend who's techie, and they usually help me out. Well, that shows that you're willing to put the work outside, and it's not related to a sales or a phone position. Then they're going to consider that. Like, okay, this person acknowledges that they have some weaknesses and knows what to do about them. That's a great response. Practice your intro, your elevator speech. People like say, tell me about yourself. First question you get, right? And you're not going to say, well, I grew up in Southern California and, lazy summers and, my grandpa back on the farm. They don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is how you got to this table and how you're going to bring something to the position and help the team or the company, right? I started off as an intern here. I built my way up. I worked with a lot of mentors. I have some management training. I was given a position to succeed. I led a few projects. I believe all that experience brings me today and makes me the most qualified person for this management position. Builds up, right? That nobody wants to hear about your dog or your grandchildren. That comes later. That comes toward the end of the interview. So have that ready. Have it ready. Tell them about your education and your training, if you have any, how you enjoyed it, how it was challenging, but you knew that it was natural for you. People like to know that. They don't want to say, oh, well, I went to accounting school and, I guess it's what I did. I never changed my major, so here I am. Nobody wants to hire a Debbie Downer. So tell them how you went to the School of Accounting and you just fit right in. It was natural for you. And how even on the weekends, you like to hear financial news because you just like to be on top of things. That's relevant. That shows passion for the company. And speaking of passion for the company, throw something in there about the company. During your questions, try to reference, well, I heard that you guys did something last week at the local, so I saw some of your team members volunteering at the vaccine station last week, and I thought that was so cool. They like to hear that stuff, that you're actually heard about. People don't like to hear, have you heard about us? No, I haven't. No, people don't like to hear that. What do you know about the company? You want to tell them what you know about the company. Make sure you research the company, be able to throw a few little facts about them and say, can you tell me more? Because it's, I really want to hear more. Put it back in their conversation. Tell me how you got here. Now we're leading into questions you may have for the interviewer. Don't ever say, they're always going to ask you, even if there was a minute left, do you have any questions for us? Don't ever say, oh no, you've answered everything. Even though they may have answered everything, have a lot of questions prepared for the interviewer. And it could be, tell me more about the company. Tell me how you got here. Tell me, is this a vacant position? Did the last person get promoted, or did you fire them? Or is it you? That's a great question. That shows that you're interested in the position. If they've answered all these questions, ask more questions. So have a lot of questions prepared for the interviewer, even though you may only get to ask 1 or 0 questions. Sometimes it happens that way. And thank them for the interview. Say, hey, thank you. Remind them, give them a quick summary of why you are qualified for the position. Say, thank you for the interview. We've had a great time. I see that through our interactions, we can work well together because I wasn't nervous. Well, or you could have been nervous. You could say I was a little bit nervous, but you calmed me down. We've had a nice dialogue. I just want to remind you that, I have the education, the training. I've worked my way up. I have solid projects behind me, whatever it is. I have the years of experience. Keywords, don't say keywords, but my resume pretty much matches the job posting descriptions. I think I would bring a lot of value to the company. Thank you for having me. Next steps. And here's something that I usually ask people is, so if I were to get the position, I really like you. I think I could do well here. If I were to get the position, what would I be doing? And here's how a key hint, because people slip on how you know if you're in line for the position or you're not. If they say, well, Peter, you will be working with so-and-so from this team and you'll be overlooking this team over here. And what we want you to do is go in and start, if they have a plan for you and they're talking about you in the position, you've done well. However, if they say, oh my, well, the ideal candidate, or we have a lot of candidates to interview, but if we were to hire somebody for this position, this person, and they're no longer talking about you, you either have to clarify a few things, or it's pretty much an uphill battle for that. So if they start talking about the person and the third person, the ideal person would not, and they don't slip and say you would be doing this, you may need to clarify more things. Say, so it's one last opportunity for you to say, I just want to clarify that, I do have this skill. And sometimes it happens, you overlook it. It may be something it could be software related. It could be management related. I see you haven't, the ideal person would have more management techniques. And you might want to say, well, by the way, I want to let you know that in Toastmasters, I manage large projects, the annual conference, the competitions. I have handled large projects. I just want to clarify that for you because it sounds like it's not clear on my resume. And I just want to add that before I leave and give you a sense of confidence with me. So that's pretty much the presentation. Again, today we've talked about making sure that you know how to play the game so that you don't lose your mind and say, why doesn't anybody want me? It's just you haven't been playing the game right and nobody knows you're out there because the ATS, the applicant tracking system, hasn't given you enough points for you to move on to the next level. So make sure you have that resume in the right format and you have keywords that are relevant to the position you are applying for. You can have several versions of your resume. I usually date them with the date I apply. Sometimes I put the company name on them. So Peter's resume for ABC company. They don't really pay attention to that. That way I know what resume to pull up, and don't lie on your resume. Again, it has to be relevant, but you do have to change keywords to match the applicant tracking system. The behavioral health assessments, please don't try to cheat it. Do some research on the company, then take the assessment. But if it's the right fit, it's the right fit. You won't be wasting anyone's time. If it's not the right fit, you just save yourself several months of being miserable at a company that you probably would not have been happy at. And then please, please, please prepare for the interview. practice this common questions, successful times, unsuccessful times, working in groups, disagreements with management, disagreements with peers, your elevator speech, tell me about yourself, questions for management. Don't forget to thank management or the interviewers on your way out, and clarify any questions that you may feel that you didn't clarify during the interview. I played with this a lot. I've been on a lot of good interviews, and I've been on automatic denials. So I know it works, at least for me and my industry. Every industry is different. Every company is different. But from what I've been doing and playing with this for the past year, I've had a lot of success with this. And I must say that I am happy to share this information. If you have any questions, you can always reach me at Peter Salazar DTM@gmail.com. It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you. Thank you for being here. And please look into Toastmasters. It's a great organization. It's helped me out 100 times over. I love it. I am a lifetime member. And guess what? They don't pay me for this. I pay them a monthly membership fee because it is that well of an organization. Thank you.